The hero was blessed with the power to bring people back to life, resurrecting their companions to keep up the fight against the Dark Lord. Which is why it's odd that they brought you, the Dark Lord that they fought against, back to life. I felt cold. Everything was dark. I guess that was it then. The so-called heroes had won. My glorious reign would not bring peace. In a century or two, the world would dissolve again into war and chaos. I saw a bright point, full of warmth. It pulled on my consciousness, and I let myself rise to it. Time to face my afterlife. Or so I thought. The first thing I felt was pain. I was on the ground, my hands bound, and it felt like I was still in my battered armor. I forced my eyes open. I was still in my castle. Did I survive somehow? Could I recover, get my revenge, and bring about everlasting peace? As I started to get up, I felt a lance against my throat. Frozen with fear, I looked up and saw her grin. She was bloodied, but clearly still breathing. Dark Lord Astolos, you were a worthy competitor, but now you have lost. Then why am I alive, little hero? Why am I still breathing? You know that while I live, my zombies will continue to fight, to plunder, and kill. The hero reached down and offered me a hand up. I took it tentatively. If this fragile hero were to die, I would fall back to death. I am sure of it. Her blessing and mine are not so different. Our gods are siblings after all. They quarrel, but their powers are two sides of the same coin. You are alive, Astolos, because I still need you. Your armies, your raiding, have brought the nations of light together. But, should they leave, they begin their petty squabbles again. At some point, they will go to war. This child understands, then. The nature of mankind is violent and chaotic. Only together, Dark Lord, can we find peace. Your legions of darkness will put up a facade of war against my alliance of light, which will then pretend to fight back. Together, we can keep a facade of an eternal war to create an eternal peace. I will need your help. My powers of resurrection and yours both have their limits, but I believe that together we can make any number of people truly immortal. So, what do you say? I reached out and took her hand, and I felt her power. Our magics intertwined, and I could feel it working. My magic reinforced her bones. Hers repaired the flesh and skin that had begun to rot from my body. I felt young and strong. Together, our magics were stronger. Together, we were stronger. As we shook hands, an aurora broke out in the skies as our gods made their peace for the first time in millennium. This story was written by the pseudo-Anon. This next story is written by Noel York. Revenus stared at the heavy wooden door, watching as the hero's party pounded against it, knocking tendrils of dust loose and rattling the old hinges. He ran a hand through his wispy white hair. His ancient heart pulsed in his ears to the steady rhythm of the banging door. It had been far too long that he'd been forced to fight. His army of undead dragon hatchlings usually kept adventurers and other annoying do-gooders at bay, leaving him to his studies. As he raised his hand, trying to think of a spell to cast, his mind went blank, as if he'd never learned a single one. How many nights had he laid his subject's open body across the dies to receive power from the void? Or paying high sums to the Thieves' Guild for power scrolls, typically retrieved from grave sites. Hadn't he read them all? He'd collected spells like his simple father had collected butterflies. The door burst open in a flying shower of wood and twisted metal. 5 men stormed the room and formed a line, each one holding a bloodied sword, reflecting the light from the hundreds of candles that lined the walls. Their armor was torn to pieces, and in several places, Revenus spotted bare skin, no wounds. Then she broke the line. The Lady of Blue Lake dragged her war axe across the stone floor. The long, continuous scratch of its blade raised the hairs on Revenus's neck and sent a chill down his spine. Though somewhat bloodied and singed, her leather armor looked hardly tested. If only he could. "Time to meet your end," Lady said as her axe became a blur of color. Revenus was flying. No, just his head. The world spun. His cheek smashed against the ground, head rolling side to side, before his ear stopped the motion. Before the darkness swallowed him whole, he heard his body slump to the floor behind him. Nothingness. So this is what death is like, he thought. It's actually not so bad. No pain, no hunger. It was like being in the middle of a vast ocean made not of water, but of shadows that held his body aloft, keeping him perfectly still. For once, Revenus felt himself free of all the vile thoughts and compulsions that had ruled him during his too long life. It's over. He wanted to smile. It's all finally over. 100,000 tiny hands began to pull him under the surface. Blinding light flooded the tranquil dark. No! He wanted to scream, but had no mouth to do so. Not in this place, but he was leaving. "He's coming too," a voice said. Revenus blinked his eyes. A silhouette above him took shape. It was her, the Lady of Blue Lake. "Sorry about that," she said. "You see, I got caught up in the moment, and well..." "What have you done?" Revenus felt along his neck, probing with trembling fingers for a sign that his head had been cut from his body. Everything seemed fine. "How am I alive?" "My au pair used to double in necromancy before she found her true calling," the lady explained. She waved over to her crew, men twice her size with violence in their eyes. Violence and something else buried in their 1,000-yard stares. A kind of soul fatigue. She went on. "To reach your lair, I had to bring them back over and over and over." "I see." Revenus tried to stand. "Whoa," the lady said, pushing him back down. "And where do you think you're going?" You brought me back?" He knitted his eyebrows together. "Weren't you just explaining that you hadn't meant to kill me?" "Oh," she laughed. No. She shook her head, a delighted smile on her face. "I thought the Day Prince was watching. He got cut down by one of your hatchlings, but I went back and revived him. And now we're just waiting." She turned at the sound of boots clicking on stone. "Ah, he's coming. Peter, John, you two want to prop him up?" The two men stepped forward and yanked Revenus up from the floor, and then stepped back, leaving him alone with the Lady of Blue Lake. A prince decked out in golden garb stepped through the ruined doorway. His eyes scanned the room and stopped on Revenus and the lady. "Like I was saying," she said, casting a look back at the prince. Turning back to Revenus, she raised her axe. "Time to meet your end, Dark Lord." Thank you for listening.